we created Brainroot to try and make us smarter. Let's talk about this story. I mean, one thing I always love about Convicts has been our commitment to original projects and original creativity. And that has over the years changed forms. You know, we've thrown parties, we've thrown silent discos, we've made films, we've done social campaigns, we've made, PSAs. One thing we did probably 5 years ago was we did that breakup with plastic PSA, where we had like friends of convicts come in and just talk about, sustainability and the environment, but in a fun way. I think we called it hot PSAs, and it was just hot people delivering public service announcements about the environment. And I think off the back of that, we were actively trying to reduce our plastic footprint in the office. And Barron at the time was really helping to kind of audit our trash. And so we went down a cool journey of building out what will be our first product at Convicts. And I like to think that it's just another embodiment, another representation of our creativity is the bottom line for me. What it is as a drink is a functional sparkling water beverage with healthy nootropics that are good for your brain. It's an awesome alternative to an afternoon coffee. I love the tagline because 2 p.m. is too late for coffee and too early for tequila. We're not out there to preach about what you shouldn't do. We're all for going to the rave last night and getting to happy hour as quickly as possible. We're all for a couple of coffees in the morning. I can't live without it. But, when you reach for something in the afternoon rather than, a sugar Snickers bar or a can of Coke or Red Bull or another coffee, here's an alternative that's healthy for you, good for your brain, fuels focus. And we've tested it for 18 months on ourselves and it works. So that's Brainroot for me.
Yeah, nice. I mean, there's kind of like, I don't know, like 3 drinks that convicts could have made. I think one would be beer, 100%.
Yeah.
But, it's a bit hard and I don't know how good of a reflection on our clients is if we just kind of made a beer and just like we're kind of constantly promoting beer.
The world also doesn't need another beer. There's heaps of good beer,
I don't know about that. Then a spirit. But I think this one is, this one in terms of sort of like, it's gone through a huge evolution. I remember sitting in front of the computer during COVID, figuring this thing out, and to be looking at the product now and feeling as though that we've got something that we should be really proud of, both from a look and also function and taste. And ultimately, that idea that sort of we having a brand and putting a lot of emphasis on our brand, that's been one of the funnest parts of Convicts, absolutely. Continuing to be able to make on our own behalf, but also, we developed a look and feel and a style and then kind of put some barriers around our brand. And inadvertently, we don't have the same amount of freedom because we've kind of built our own image in a way, like we everything it needs to be Convicts. It can't be kind of like completely outside of what we do. But then now we've got this new brand that's in its infancy that has no rules really. And it's quite different to sort of like the Convicts brand, but it's still ours. And, we have no rules now. Like we can kind of do what we want. We can kind of, put it straight into 5th gear, but using the same experience that we've had over the last 10 years, kind of knowing that throwing caution to the wind is sort of how we've stayed alive and had fun doing it. And that's kind of what I think is really exciting, is just kind of like having a fresh new brand that we all love and believe in, that we get to drink every day, that we get to share with our friends, but then we also get to kind of like, kind of spark it up right now and really kind of get, make as much noise as we can without anyone telling us what and how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 90% of our day is normally like diligence around our work, our agency, our content production. I think like these riskier projects, like you just said, that have, potentially a huge upside as a business as well, is exactly what the heartbeat of this company's always been. And I think if at the start of these projects you knew what was going to be required, you'd second guess them, or if you just analyze them from the outside and all the reasons you shouldn't do it. We've talked about this so many times. You wouldn't, but that's not what creates something new. That's not what creativity is. It's not what making is. And, Troublemakers for a Better World if we're going to live up to that, we've got to do it. We've got to live up to it, and we've got to make stuff. And this is a awesome embodiment of it. It's from the logo, the name, the brand, the product itself actually being very much aligned with us as a company and what we do, and the brain and pioneering brain space and creativity, through to the social media, the content, the future campaigns. It's a perfect embodiment of all the things that we want to be and say we do. And like you just said, we actually get to enjoy this product as well. So the company is called Conviction Goods, which I also love. It's a really nice extension of the Convicts brand and the Convicts umbrella. I think what I wanted to do too is just go through a little bit of like how we got here functionally. So I think, from probably 5 years ago, talking about a sustainable aluminum or aluminium can as probably the most sustainable single-use drink vehicle, drink package, to then working with Simone, a psychologist, and the biohacker community on what a formula should be that has science around every ingredient, that nothing in here hasn't been proven to have a really good brain benefit, whether it's, cognitive function, memory, focus, reduce anxiety and stress, like all of these things. Clearly these nootropics support to getting the flavor right, to getting the brand right, to figuring out obviously the operations of printing and canning and co-packing and now actually getting into the sales side. I think this process has been really interesting, really challenging. I know it's pushed you and me probably to our limits and new territories that we haven't been in before, and the whole team. But I think that's what also kind of gets you out of bed in the morning as well. And then, we're kind of at day one now. I'm just so fascinated and interested and excited to see what happens. And I kind of I'm glad we're putting this on tape the moment, because my gut is this thing's going to go crazy. I think it's awesome, and I believe in it. And every now and then you get that feeling in your bones when you're like, we've got something here that's really cool and special, and the timing feels right. The approach and the effort and our, probably professionalism around making this feels right. So let's fucking go.
I think too, to be honest, I don't even remember when I remember going through the naming process, and kind of that was like the most wild kind of roller coaster, because everyone's kind of throwing in all these things, and then all of a sudden there's this word root getting thrown around that kind of was very kind of controversial, and there was contrasting opinions, and there were names that were taken, but then the brain formula, right? And I think that that for us is kind of like, as a creative agency, as a company that sort of uses our imagination as a tool, and sort of that really is kind of like our currency. And developing something that sort of can give you that ignition, pure ignition. And again, the purity coming from sort of, there's nothing kind of insanely artificial in there. There's no caffeine, no calories, no artificial flavors. There's no sugar. And so, for that creative person in whatever they do to have a drink that they can go to, that they know that can give you that little pickup, and have no not feel bad about it at all, but at the same time, you said it earlier, it's like, we're not preachy, as if we're not going to mix it with tequila all the time. You know what I mean? Like that idea is that, like, you can drink it at 9 a.m. if you want to. You can drink it at 10 a.m. You can drink it at 2 p.m. You can drink it at 10 p.m. with tequila. And it's not, you're not going to feel bad about it, and you're going to get something from it. So,
can you also maybe expand on the brand a little bit? Because we went through a couple of iterations. The name was fun. There's a lot of like cool nuance around the name, and even the Aussie tongue in cheek with it. But the brand itself, we worked with Vocabulary and Pete Baston on the brand, and at the time we kind of really looked into, like, culturally, where should this brand lean into? What sort of vibe is it going to represent? And I remember the territories we looked at were really cool and interesting. We've always loved the work, but I remember hearing also you and Pete say, like, it's not the formula, it's not the product, it's the brand. That's what people are buying. And for sure, I'd like to think you're wrong, but I don't think you are. And I think when you're introducing something new, that is the first experience of the product, is the brand, because no one has tried this before. So for every customer, their first impression is going to be what this looks like. Then it's going to be kind of what it smells like when they crack the can. Then it's going to be what it tastes like. And then the intention is, then what did it make you feel, is the actual purpose of it. So I think, obviously, I agree with you guys. Like, the brand itself is maybe the most important thing right now that's going to help this thing find its feet. I mean, here's the Magnesium SKU, which looks sick. This one's not cold, but when it's cold, it sweats, and the kind of textures of the can come to life. It's really, this has always stood out to everyone. A very, very, like, really cool contemporary kind of can. I've got the berry one here. It's loud, it's fun, it's unapologetic. I think it gives us heaps of room to push the boundaries with how we're going to behave as a brand and what we're going to say. We want that to be part of the essence. But I guess I'd like to hear from you, now that we're kind of at this point, what you've enjoyed about it, making this brand.
Yeah. I mean, like, when we were starting, because we know the science is sound. The formula is, it has been developed. It's science backed. It's kind of like, it's a very sort of proven and scientific formula of ingredients specifically for the brain. But we know that if we came out of the gates with too sort of buttoned up white jacket approach, that it's not us. And so we wanted to mix that with sort of like, almost kind of, vibrant summer sort of madness almost. And I think that sort of idea, when we were starting out, Pete threw out this mad science. It's like that idea. It's kind of like who is our scientist? Is he kind of like in a tie-dye jacket, and he's kind of hair's crazy, and he's really fun and sort of eclectic? And so that idea was kind of like where we started developing the brand. And we knew that, color was going to be a really fun story to tell. And I think the why we kind of like have three flavors, berry, lemon, and lime, and having, two colors for each of those. So six. But then outside of that, we sort of still, like I said earlier, there's all of the colors that we have on use are like, I think we have, 10 different ones that are all vibrant. And I think that ultimately, like, when I go and buy a product, I'm looking at the brand before the brand is drawing me in before I'm reading a nutrition panel,
Mhm.
before I'm sort of getting an understanding of what I'm buying. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to kind of catch their attention. Hence why we used really fun colors. And then I think it's also kind of like, how do you find it? Are you finding it through someone cool? Like, you want something cool in your hand walking down the street. It's still like an accessory to a certain degree, a beverage. Like, I think even people nowadays, like, they're even buying cool water bottles. They're the Voss water bottle. Like, people were buying them just because they look cool. Way more expensive, but like, aesthetics is still a thing. So we wanted it to be really cool. And then outside of that, like, we really are meeting sort of this like bubbly, surreal kind of like no limits fun with, really sort of sound science, and making sure that those things collide in a really cool way. And that science doesn't, you can talk about it, but while holding a product that looks like it was developed at an after party at Coachella. You know what I mean? Like, that's sort of like at that, like, that weird party that I went to once that has all the circus games.
Oh yeah, I know
Um,
that party, Neon Carnival.
Neon Carnival, that's the one.
That's good.
It's like, yeah, it's like a bunch of dudes, like people in at Neon Carnival are like, yeah, I know science. Yeah, me too.
You want a shot? Uh, the the thing I'm interested in next is we've worked really hard to build a convicts community. I kind of like troublemaker fun community in New York. We used to throw lots of parties, and we've built like a really good kind of, I guess, reputation for bringing really fun, diverse group of people together throughout the years. Sadly, kind of COVID, you know, stalled that, but now it feels like it's a good time for us to continue that momentum that we had. And I'm really interested to see, we've never tried to sell anything really to our community, our audience, our convicts audience. But I do think we've built integrity with our audience. And I think that they have seen the efforts we've gone to tell really rich stories, to lean into, politics, rights, all sorts of things. And this is the first time we're going to actually sell our audience and our community a product. And I'm glad it's something we believe in. And we, like you said, we think it's good for you. It's got a purpose in your day. It's not just like something you might not need. It's hopefully does, improve your brain health, and, maybe it is focus or the afternoon slump or something, some part of your day that this can add some value to. And I'm interested, to see how our audience reacts to it, what they like about it, whether they like the taste, what flavor they like, the efficacy of the product itself. Do they feel like they want to make this part of their day? Is this an afternoon ritual that picks up, that's, people can't live without? That's ideal. Obviously, commercially, that's fantastic as a business, but also how cool if we can bring something to the world that adds value in that way to people's day. And I think the first audience is our trusted community, and like the Convicts crew that we've worked on. And, there's across our social channels, but also just more like our actual friends in, multiple cities around the world now. I just can't wait for them to get the chance to try it and tell us what they think, react
Yeah.
to it, review it, love it or hate it, doesn't really matter as much as just hearing what people think to me out of this, out of the gates.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think for me, it's like this probably won't make the make the cut, but like my honest, my like what I want to see from this is like people enjoy like getting the can out of the fridge or taking it to pay at the counter, knowing that they're kind of like pumped to be able to try this cool looking drink, crack it open, enjoy the taste of it, and know that what they're having is guilt free. And whether they, get an effect straight away, that's just to each their own, like every single brain is individual, every body's individual. People feel caffeine differently than others, but this drink, is guilt free, no sugar, no calories, no caffeine. The flavors are all natural, and everyone's going to experience their own way. But I hope they just enjoy having it in their hand, tasting it, and then have it every day. And I think that sort of like finding their new favorite drink, everyone's got one. And I guarantee that most people's favorite drink away from alcohol is something guilt free. Like I think Coca-Cola has gone by the wayside. Anything with a massive amount of sugar. Now it's like lightly flavored sparklings that people like to have, either once or twice or multiple times a day, and they want it to be guilt-free, and they don't want to. And when I say guilt-free, that's not even right, because it's still like a wellness cocktail, if you will. Like, there's the flavor, the ingredients are, lion's mane, ashwagandha, ginseng, vitamin B6, and then we have the magnesium L-threonate, unflavored, and that's what's in there. And I mean, all of those things are good for you. And so, you're having a drink that is actually going to be beneficial for you. It tastes shit hot and it looks fucking epic. So go out there and just like buy boxes of it. Yeah. And also, like, I think that the thing that that notion of like, us reacting to briefs every day for 10 years, and then going, you know what, like, we're just gonna make a brief ourselves, start a product. And I remember it was a couple of years ago, and my girlfriend Lizzie's like looked at her company's sales on the weekend, and they like made heaps of money. And I'm like, what the fuck do you mean you're making money on the week? You're not even working. You're making money on the weekends. Like, and so like, I can't wait to look at the sales and go, yes, we're finally making money on the weekend.
Well, you're at the pub, you're making money.
Yeah. Just telling someone. Yeah. Telling someone about Brainroot, and they just don't even understand what I'm saying. They're like, yeah, cool, mate. I have no idea what you're talking about.
There's a bar in downtown Manhattan. We were out late one night, Tom, where you were selling Brainroot, and they were excited about it. We'll have to revisit that bar down on Walker Street. I think. The brain is interesting, like, just to kind of like, I guess, talk about the product a bit more. If I just like think about like, even, I'm 41, pretty early on, I cared about like physical health, mainly for sport, right? You wanted to get fit, you wanted to play sport, you wanted to be healthy for sport. I thought about nutrition a little bit. I wasn't thinking about gut health, but I cared about nutrition and was thoughtful about it. But I've never once, probably until the last, 4 or 5 years, really thought about brain health. And I think it's like a new territory that's really interesting. And, when we were doing that branding stuff, we were like, why does the heart get so much love? Like the I Love New York t-shirt, I Heart New York t-shirt. Like, I heard I think it was Simone that said, a psychologist was like, the heart isn't responsible for any of those emotions of love. It's the brain. Yet the heart's on the t-shirt. The heart's the emoji. It should be the brain. The brain is the one that's doing all this for us. And so there's something cool there too. I know that the supplement space and and brain health is a booming industry, but it does feel like it's pioneering territory. And I think we're also just getting ourselves into it. So I think this brain space, brain health, brain function, brain performance, brain energy, cognitive energy, that area, and like this is our first product. I assume we're going to continue to innovate as we learn and learn new things and make it better, or increase levels, or try different nootropics or minerals that can help make this more effective for our brains. But I just love that we're on a journey around brain space a little bit too. And as I said, like in now thinking about 40 plus, starting to think about these decisions more of like, what am I eating and drinking, and why am I eating and drinking it? And I still want to be able to go out and drink booze and drink coffee and eat delicious food. But I think like making these choices for our brains are becoming more apparent to me as really important choices. And I think that's what's exciting as well about where we've landed with our first product.
Well, that's like, it's interesting segue back into the brand, because I don't know, I can't really tell this story. No, like, back into the brand, because like, we talk about the brain, and the brain's kind of like made up of, the conscious and the subconscious, right? Like this idea that like every human being on earth can tap into a certain percentage of their brain. It's just like, and I think it's the dolphin that can use twice as much of their brain than humans. But what we have is this kind of like consciousness that's everything we experience every day. That is kind of like how we see, we feel, we touch, we just kind of live in general. And then the subconscious is, our kind of dream state, our sort of more surreal, kind of fantastical and magical side of our consciousness. And that's really what the brand is, right? Like, because we have this kind of like consciousness side, which is really this scientific, the formula, the real thing. And that sort of real thing, scientifically backed, is kind of the conscious effort that we're making to put something good into a can. And then the branding side of it is the subconscious, surreal, magical side of it, where nothing's off limits and nothing's kind of like unreal. We want to kind of push the limits to everything that we can do to make this brand feel so wonderful that it's kind of, it's like having a beautiful dream in a way. So it's kind of a cool thing, like I think that idea of like really having that sort of substance harmony that is like true to everyone's brain. And, I think that idea of like, I still think, Barron was the one who really sort of used to talk fondly about tapping into the subconscious and knowing that's where so much of ourselves and the world is learned. And so without putting DMT into a can, I guess we're kind of like,
we should actually, isn't Burning Man happening like this next week? We should just like put 10,000 cans on a truck to Burning Man right now and get that Neon Carnival, juice flowing.
Yeah. Just go in there like as dolphins, using double the brain of everyone else, and desert dolphins. That's what we can call it. Yeah.
Your brain will thank you is our current like kind of like fun tagline. Where do you like throw it out there? Like, where do you see us being? What do you think the conversation we'll be having is in 12 months and 5 years when it comes to brain?
Around, I mean, I think like my honest my excitement for it is to um, expand on the flavors. I think that side of it, sort of like because ultimately, if you expand more flavors, you just get to develop more products, and that's branding, and that's really fun. I think that there's so many more ways to transition the product into different areas, like powders, sachets. There's so many things that, and I think that there's going to be new ways to sort of like continue with uh, the brain focused brand that we're building right now. What we've
Mhm.
created is not the only thing that's going to be healthy for the brain. And I think that as we move into, year after year, we're going to learn more about what can naturally help brain health. And I do think that, as we grow, if we continue with our conviction in sort of like this space, um, it doesn't need to be products all the time.
Mhm.
There's so much more that we can do with this brand that can kind of like really, really own the brain space in a way that feels fun, attainable, digestible, and that you kind of feel like you're part of a community. But uh, you stand, and like I said again, this idea that like you don't have to look after your brain every single second of every single day. You can destroy it one day, and then have a brain root and get back get back on it.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, you're right. Like coming, from a convict's perspective, content has been our core capability for 10 years, and there is like a never-ending vault of really interesting stories to tell when it comes to the brain too.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's just brain health or not, but like it's going to be really fun to like build out, the brand in storytelling and content, and also like expert, like it's allowed us to speak to experts. And you guys had dinner with Jonah Oliver on Monday, who's a sports psychologist that we're working with on another project, who knows about Brainroot. He's come to tastings and tried it, and he's aware of what's in it. He's has talked to me about the science of coming off coffee and sugar, and what that actually is doing in the brain when you've had too much coffee or coffee too late in the day, or what that slump time really means when you need to pick up. And hopefully our drink can be an answer to that in people's days. But I just think like the way that this is opening up a whole new field of interesting stories and content is cool for convicts as well, and will be really fun as we go into it. There was two stories I wanted to tell. One was like, the headline for this podcast, or this conversation, the headline for this conversation should be like, why did we make a drink? Why did a creative studio make a nootropic drink? That's like the why. And we've discussed like a lot about the product and the journey to get here. But I also, what's really interesting as a business, as we look to create value as a business at Convicts, is we've arguably spent the last 10 years helping grow other people's brands. And, as marketers and as storytellers, we're constantly trying to help support other brands grow. In some cases, sell more products, sell more airplane seats. There's things we do that have helped grow other people's brands and value. And as a business, we participate and get paid to do our work, which is great, and that's valued. But I think the idea that we can have ownership in brands that we grow is really interesting as well. And it's not a new model. You know, there's a lot of, you know, talent, for instance, like the Ryan Reynolds of the worlds that have brands. You know, I think Jay-Z became a billionaire. When you looked at the split of where he made his money, more of it was from his alcohol equity than was from his music sales. So this is not a new story, but I think for a company in a creative studio to have ownership and skin in the game, be able to apply our skills to make this successful, but also, you know, participate in real value and real brand value is really exciting. And I think it's clearly, yeah, there's, of course there's risk involved. We've had to, you know, put effort into building something from scratch, but I think that risk reward profile that we've always considered when we go and, you know, put our money into telling a story or doing something or throwing a party has always been like, well, what's the upside here? Why are we doing this? What is the return? And I think that there's a much, you know, there's a high risk, but there's also a huge opportunity for us to grow as a company and to add value to the company
Yeah.
because we're, you know, we've got skin in the game. And I think that's another part of this of like, why do we do this? Well, we want to grow it and we want it to be successful and we want to participate in that, you know, from a value standpoint. And that's, I think, exciting territory for us as well as a company.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that like, well, it's, at the end of the day, like, you know, we made a product that we wanted to make because we wanted to benefit from it. And that idea, you know, when we talk about a creative drink for creative minds, I loved the, you know, I think it was the Big Magic, the book that talks about, you know, creativity and how, you know, it's in everyone. You know, if you sort of, I remember there was a little story about this girl who used to be a figure skater and when she was younger and she loved it and she lost touch with it. And then in her, you know, 60s or 70s, she was feeling sort of low and she decided to put on skates again and go and do it. And she was nowhere near what she remembered, but that idea that she felt creative again just by doing something that she knew she was good at once upon a time. And like that, so that idea is like, you know, yes, this is kind of going to give you a brain boost. We call it a creative drink for creative minds, but it's for everyone. And I think that idea, like, you know, that at the end of the day, we know that we're going to drink it every day. We know that we are going to, you know, benefit from the effects every day. But, you know, I feel like anyone can, you know, feel like they're part of you know, a bit of a creative movement when they've got one in their hands and when they put it in their mouth.
Agree. The last story I wanted to tell quickly, just as like I guess there's a bit of a proof point for why you should go try it is not only have we had it in our own offices where all of us have been drinking it, but we had a shoot at a client's in a multi-billion-dollar client that has an office in LA, and we had a shoot there for 3 days. And the first day we showed up, and we had a cooler of Brainroot on ice next to all the coffee and the kombucha and the sodas and sparkling waters that you could imagine in the craft service table. And people would come and check out what Brainroot was and be like, oh, what is this? And try it. Started to pass around. First day, we saw people trying it and talking about it. Second day, we brought back more product and filled the esky, and it was gone by halfway through the day. Third day, we ran out of product in the first 2 hours. and it may be biased, but watching people come back and want more of it in that way, and that office asking us for product on a regular basis, following that and wanting it for their team and employees, I don't think we'd be here if we hadn't had those experiences of our team and clients wanting to drink it. So, that's my hope is that that's the experience we have with other offices, other, homes, people, teams that when they get to try it.
That's the big slogan. Brainroot, developing healthy crackheads one sip at a time. when you're telling that story, it's
Come
like,
back for more.
then on day 3 they're scratching their skin, going like, "Where's the brain root? What do you mean you've got no brain root?"
The secret formula, Tom. All natural but secret.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Let's do intros. Hey, I'm Pete, CEO of Convicts, and we are founders of Brainroot, sparkling nootropic water. Go get some. Get it into you. Your brain will thank you.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Tom. Don't really know which one to say. ECD at Convicts. Hey, I'm Tom, ECD at Convicts. And I helped get this can of Brainroot in your mouth.
There you go. Get it. Get some.
Hang on, I'll do one more. And
Wait, will you just quickly tell us about each one really quickly? Be like, this is...
Yeah. And so this is our lime flavour. We actually, part of the branding, we wanted to give the flavours a little bit of a character. So this one's life lime. Same ingredients, ginseng, vitamin B6, lion's mane, ashwagandha. We gave our lemon flavour, lemonade. So AID, you can sort of see it there, lemon plus aid. Pretty clever. And then this one is our berry flavour, and this one's berry brain. We were going to call it Barry Brain, but that didn't have a flavour. So it's berry brain, and if you drink it, you'll be very, very brain of yourself. And this one is magnesium. It doesn't have a character because it's boring. Just because it doesn't have an actual flavour. So this one's sparkling magnesium. A little bit of a different look and feel because we used the raw aluminum as its kind of tone, reflective, but we still wanted to give it a colour, so we gave it a blue colour, which is really fun. All of these ones, when you've got them in your hand, they look shit hot, and when you walk down the street, you will break necks because people will be looking at you from you walk past and look back, and so if you find it at your local grocery store, if you find it on your local TikTok account, if you find it at your local Amazon, or if you find it at in your local dealer's car, ask him where he got it and go get one for yourself.
Awesome. Thank you, Thomas.
De nada.
See ya.